The crystalline chimes of Xylos Station sang a melody of newfound peace, a harmony soon to be shattered by a scream that echoed across millennia, as the Avianoid scholar Lyra saw the ordered dance of celebration twist into the chaotic signature of an ancient, reawakened hunger. The grand observation deck of Xylos Station glittered, a testament to the fresh alliance between humanity and the sylvan people of the planet Xylos below, its verdant continents swirling under a gentle lavender sky. Kaelen, human trade negotiator, currently unwilling test pilot, nursed a glass of something blue and faintly fizzy, trying to ignore the sensation of being watched. It wasn't paranoia, it was Lyra. She stood a polite distance away, her slender, avianoid form partially obscured by a flourishing data fern, its fronds glowing softly. Her plumage, a shimmering tapestry of emerald and sapphire, shifted with her subtle movements, and her large, obsidian eyes, tilted slightly upwards at the outer corners, were fixed on him with an unnerving intensity. She called it baseline behavioral observation. For his upcoming test flight of the experimental harmony drive, he called it being stared at like a particularly perplexing species of insect, as my O2 consumption within acceptable parameters, Scholar Lyra. Kaelen finally drawled, not turning. He could feel her slight bird-like tilt of the head. Lyra's voice, when she spoke, was a melodious contralto, like wind through ancient sylvan chimes. Your respiration rate has increased by 7% since Ambassador Vorlag began his speech on interspecies fruit cultivation. Negotiator Kaelen. Indicative of either heightened interest or mild tedium. Kaelen snorted, finally turning to face her. Her skin, a pale, mossy green, seemed to absorb the station's light, and he knew it was more than just pigment. It was photosynthetic, a biological marvel that required a specific light spectrum her people called Sunbloom to truly thrive. He wondered if the station's artificial approximation was ever truly enough for her. Let's go with tedium, he said, no offense to the ambassador or his prized grelican berries. Lyra made a soft clicking sound in her throat, a sylvan expression he hadn't quite deciphered yet, amusement. Skepticism. Your candor is refreshing. Most subjects exhibit a degree of social obfuscation. I'm not a subject, Lyra. I'm a pilot, a very reluctant one, for a drive that sounds more like a philosophical concept than an engine. He gestured vaguely. And you're not just studying the drive, are you? You're studying me. Her feathered crest, usually lying sleek against her skull, ruffled almost imperceptibly. The organic technological interface is critical for the harmony drive. Your physiological and psychological responses are as vital as the dilithium articulation rates. She tapped a stylus against the datapad clutched in her three-taloned hand. For instance, your current micro-expressions suggest defensiveness, layered with a distinct undercurrent of resignation. It's quite fascinating how human emotional states can be so visibly complex. Kaelen sighed, doggedly persistent. That was his key trait, the one that had gotten him through countless deadlocked trade deals, and now, apparently, into the cockpit of a ship that promised to fold space without tearing it a new one. Fascinating, he echoed, his tone dry. He looked past her, to the glittering starfield. His gaze snagged on an old, decommissioned satellite drifting nearby, its solar panels askew, hole pockmarked. Ugly by human standards, but Lyra had once commented on its serene acceptance of cosmic weathering, finding beauty in its slow decay. A deep cultural appreciation for elegant decay, she'd called it. He still didn't get it. To him, it just looked broken. The celebration was in full swing. Ambassador Vorlag, a portly Rigelian with an unfortunate skin condition that made him glisten under the station lights, was indeed still expounding on the virtues of interstellar agricultural exchange. Kaelen found himself cornered by a Zealand dignitary, whose name involved a series of clicks and whistles. Kaelen couldn't hope to replicate, so he just smiled and nodded, trying to project amenable human ally. Lyra, he noted, was observing this interaction with particular focus, her head cocked. He could almost hear her mental notes. Subject Kaelen demonstrates rudimentary cross-species appeasement gestures. Further analysis required. His comm link chimed softly in his ear. Kaelen, report to Hangar Bay 7. Pre-flight diagnostics for the Seraphim are complete, said a crisp, no-nonsense voicelet engineer Valerius. Duty calls, Kaelen said to the silent dignitary, offering a slight bow that he hoped conveyed respect and an urgent need to depart. The dignitary chirped affirmatively. As Kaelen moved towards the turbolift, Lyra fell into step beside him, her movements fluid and almost silent. The Seraphim, she murmured, the name of the experimental ship. Aptly named, perhaps, a messenger of a new era of travel, or a herald of unforeseen complexities. You're just full of optimism, aren't you? Kaelen retorted, jabbing the turbolift call button. Optimism is an emotional bias negotiator. I prefer prepared anticipation. Her gaze flickered for a moment not at him but past him, as if she saw something in the ambient energy of the station that he couldn't. A slight frown creased the delicate skin between her feathered brows. The station's energy harmonics are subtly agitated. Probably just the extra power drain from all these festive lights, Kaelen said, though a tiny, unbidden prickle of unease touched him. Lyra had an uncanny knack for noticing things others missed. She'd once identified a microfracture in a structural beam, purely by the dissonant stress patterns she'd perceived. Chaos Tamer, they called her kind on Xylos, those who could find order and predictability in seemingly random systems. It was why she was assigned to the Harmony Drive project, an engine that literally tried to find harmonious pathways through the chaotic quantum foam of spacetime. The turbolift arrived and they stepped inside. The doors hissed shut, cocooning them in soft lighting and the low hum of the station's life support. The Harmony Drive, Kaelen said, more to himself than to her, was supposed to be gentle on the fabric of reality, no more tearing holes in spacetime like the old hyperdrives. Just nudging it politely aside. A laudable goal, Lyra agreed. If achievable, the universe possesses a profound inertia. Shifting its patterns, however gently, can provoke reactions. She looked at him then, her dark eyes searching. Your persistence, Kaelen. The engineers believe it is key, that you will not give up when the drive encounters initial turbulence. I get paid to be stubborn, Kaelen said with a shrug, whether it's a trade tariff or a temperamental starship engine. They reached Hangar Bay 7. The vast space was dominated by the sleek, almost organic lines of the Seraphim. It didn't look like any ship Kaelen had ever flown. Its hull seemed ripple, polished to a dark, iridescent sheen. Engineers bustled around it making final checks. Valerius, a stern woman with cybernetic eyes that whirred softly as she focused, greeted them. Kaelen. Lyra. We're green across the board. The drive is stable, quantum entanglement field nominal. For now, Kaelen muttered. Suddenly, the station lights flickered violently, then dimmed to emergency red. A klaxon began to blare a piercing, insistent shriek. Vorlag's speech on Grelican berries was abruptly cut off mid-syllable, replaced by a panicked, crackling voice over the station-wide comms. All personnel, hostile contact, unidentified biosignatures detected, Sector Gamma. Repeat hostile contact, Lyra gasped, her feathers flaring involuntarily. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with a dawning horror that chilled Kaelen to the bone. Know the patterns, they're not agitated, they're screaming. Before Kaelen could process her words, a section of the hangar bay's outer viewport, the one looking out towards deep space, didn't just crack, it seemed to dissolve. Not with an explosion, but with a sickening silent speed, as if eaten away by an invisible acid. The vacuum beyond roared, and a wave of something pulsed inwards. It wasn't a ship or a beam. It looked like a living, roiling cloud of shadow and sickly green light, tendrils of darkness lashing out. Where they touched metal, it corroded, blackened, crumbled into dust. The Mycelian Scourge, Valerius choked out, her cybernetic eyes flaring bright red with threat assessment. It can't be they were just a legend, a precursor horror story. Screams erupted from the observation deck, audible even over the alarms. The festive chimes were drowned out by the sounds of tearing metal and pure, unadulterated terror. The celebration, the newfound peace, had indeed been shattered. The ancient biological threat was no longer a hint, but a horrifying, consuming reality. Lyra grabbed Kaelen's arm, her taloned grip surprisingly strong. The Seraphim! We must get to the Seraphim! It's our only chance. Her usual scholarly calm was gone, replaced by a desperate urgency. Her Chaos Tamer senses were clearly overwhelmed by the sheer, malevolent disorder erupting around them. This was not elegant decay, this was violent, parasitic annihilation. Chaos erupted in Hangar Bay 7. Engineers scattered, some trying to seal the dissolving breach, others scrambling for emergency shelters that were clearly not designed to withstand whatever this scourge was. Kaelen saw one unfortunate technician too close to the breach get enveloped by a dark tendril. There wasn't even a scream, just a horrifying, silent implosion of matter. Move! Kaelen yelled, his negotiator's composure replaced by a pilot's instinct for survival. He pulled Lyra towards the Seraphim's boarding ramp, which was thankfully still extended. The drive? Valeria shouted, her voice strained, as she wrestled with a control panel sparking near the viewport. It's our only weapon that might disrupt its cohesion. But even as she spoke, a lash of the Scourge's darkness whipped past her, and the panel exploded, throwing her back against a bulkhead. Valerius? Kaelen started towards her, but Lyra pulled him back, her eyes blazing. What can't help her now? If we don't launch, everyone is lost! Xylos, their target, Xylos! Her words, the sheer terror in them, cut through Kaelen's impulse. Xylos, her homeworld, the symbol of this new alliance, was directly below. He forced himself to turn to focus on the ship. Dogged persistence. Right now, it meant getting that damn ship off the station. They scrambled up the ramp, the Seraphim's internal lights flickering on as they entered the cockpit. It was designed for a single pilot, but there was a secondary console, clearly meant for Lyra's observational role. Strap in. Kaelen barked, throwing himself into the pilot's seat. His hands flew over the controls, familiarizing himself with the unconventional interface. It responded with an almost organic fluidity. Pre-flight sequence override, emergency launch, he commanded the ship's AI. Acknowledged. Launching in T-10 seconds. Warning, external hull integrity compromised in multiple sectors. Station integrity failing. The AI's voice was calm, almost serene, a stark contrast to the pandemonium outside. Through the cockpit viewport, Kaelen saw more of the Scourge materialize, like a cancerous growth blooming in the void. It wasn't just attacking the station, it was consuming it. Tendrils sinking deep into its structure, the metal groaning and twisting. Lyra, the Harmony drive? Can you stabilize the field matrix? We'll need it to even get clear. Lyra was already at her console, her taloned fingers dancing over holographic displays. Her brow was furrowed in concentration, her plumage slicked down. The chaos, it's overwhelming. The Scourge, it emits a null frequency, actively disrupting ordered energy. I will try to find a resonance path through it. Try hard. Kaelen grunted, his hands gripping the flight yoke. 5 seconds. The Seraphim shuddered as the docking clamps released. Below them, Xylos Station was visibly crumbling, sections breaking off and drifting into the void, wreathed in the Scourge's dark energy. Ignition? With a low thrum that vibrated through Kaelen's bones, the Harmony drive engaged. Instead of the violent kick of a traditional engine, it was more like an inhalation. The stars outside seemed to blur, to stretch. Field unstable, Lyra cried out. The Scourge's disruption is too strong. I can't find the pattern. Her voice was laced with a rare note of despair. Just give me something. Kaelen wrestled with the controls. The ship was bucking like a wild animal. A dark tendril, impossibly fast, lashed out from the disintegrating station, narrowly missing their cockpit. There! Lyra suddenly gasped. A momentary lacuna! A flicker of order in its attack wave! Steer port, 3.7 degrees. Maintain now. Kaelen didn't question. He wrenched the yoke. The Seraphim slewed sideways, scraping past a piece of station debris that had been infested with a pulsing green fungus. For a split second they were clear of the main Scourge mass. Punch it! Kaelen yelled. Full power to the Harmony drive! Destination anywhere but here. Calculating emergency jump vector, the AI intoned. Warning, jump solution is suboptimal. High probability of spatiotemporal distortion. Less talking, more jumping? Lyra cried out a sharp, pained sound. The energy backlash! It's trying to unravel the drive's cohesion from within. Her hands clenched, and for a moment, Kaelen saw tiny sparks of golden light dance around her fingertips, her telekinesis, usually so subtle, flaring erratically. The ship gave a violent lurch. The stars outside twisted into impossible, sickening spirals. Kaelen felt a pressure in his skull, a profound disorientation. The thrum of the Harmony drive escalated into a piercing whine. Hold on, he yelled, though whether to Lyra or himself, he wasn't sure. Then, with a final bone-jarring shudder, there was silence and darkness. Not the comforting darkness of deep space, but a cloying, absolute blackness. The ship was tumbling, alarms blaring weakly. Emergency lights flickered, casting long dancing shadows. Report, Kaelen coughed, unstrapping himself. The air tasted metallic burnt. Main power offline. The AI reported, its voice distorted. Harmony drive critical failure. Multiple hull breaches. Life support operating on emergency reserve. Lyra was slumped in her chair, her breathing shallow. Her vibrant plumage looked dull, and her skin had taken on a grayish tinge. Lyra, Kaelen was at her side in an instant. He gently touched her shoulder. Her skin felt cool, too cool. She stirred, her eyelids fluttering. The light. she whispered. I need Sunbloom, of course. Her photosynthetic skin. Without its specific light spectrum, she couldn't generate energy efficiently. The emergency lights were the wrong wavelength, doing her no good. Were somewhere, Kaelen said, peering through the viewport. It was still black, but a faint, distant glow was beginning to resolve itself. Not stars, but a diffuse, angry red nebula, and closer the jagged silhouettes of asteroids. A dense, chaotic field of rock and ice. The jump it threw us far off course. Lyra murmured, trying to sit up. Into an uncharted debris field. The Scourge, did it follow? Kaelen scanned the void. I don't see it, but we're crippled, Lyra, and you're fading. Her telekinesis flickered again, weakly. A loose data chip on the console rattled, then clattered to the floor. My abilities are tied to my energy levels. The chaos had drained me, she shivered. In this place it feels wrong. Like shattered echoes. Kaelen looked around the cockpit. Damage was extensive. Panels sparked, wires hung loose. Their escape had been desperate, costly. They were stranded in the middle of nowhere, with a failing ship and an alien who was literally running out of light. The turning point had arrived, not with a bang, but with a whimper of dying systems and the chilling silence of the void. Cooperation wasn't just essential for survival anymore. It was the only thing they had left. The Scourge was out there, Xylos was in danger, and they were alone, adrift in the silent, uncaring darkness, bound together by the wreckage of their hopes. Kaelen's first priority was Lyra. His dogged persistence, usually reserved for stubborn bureaucrats or faulty engine schematics, now focused entirely on the alien scholar shivering beside him. Sunbloom light, he muttered, scanning the damaged cockpit. Okay, the emergency lighting system has variable spectrum emitters, doesn't it? For accommodating different species on long-haul flights. The controls are on the aft engineering panel. Lyra managed, her voice thin, but it requires main power. Which we don't have, Kaelen finished, grimacing. Right. He ran a hand through his hair. Think. The Seraphim was experimental, but some systems had to be standard. Auxiliary power. There must be a way to reroute it directly to one emitter. He found the panel, a mess of fried circuits and melted conduits. Looks like the Scourge's disruption wave did a number on this too. He grabbed a multi-tool from his belt pouch. For the next hour, Kaelen worked with a focused intensity that bordered on obsession. He bypassed damaged relays, rewired connections, his knuckles scraping against jagged metal. Lyra watched him, her large eyes following his every move, a faint warmth rekindling in their depths at his unwavering effort. Occasionally, she'd offer a soft suggestion, her knowledge of Sylvan energy systems, proving invaluable even in her weakened state. The crystalline matrix in the Sylvan emitters, it resonates best with a pulsed frequency, Kaelen. Not continuous. Pulsed frequency, got it. He gritted his teeth as a stray spark zapped his finger. Almost there. Finally, with a prayer to any deity who might be listening to a cynical trade negotiator, he threw a newly jury-rigged switch. One of the overhead emergency light strips flickered, then sputtered, then, miraculously, bloomed with a soft, golden-pink radiance, the exact hue of Xylos' sun at dawn. The Sunbloom light, Lyra gasped, a shudder running through her. She instinctively turned towards it, her skin seeming to drink in the glow. The grayish tinge began to recede, replaced by a healthier, pale green. Her feathers, though still somewhat dull, seemed to regain a hint of their former luster. Better? Kaelen asked, wiping sweat and grime from his forehead. Much. She breathed, a genuine smile gracing her avian features for the first time since the attack. It transformed her face, softening the sharp angles, making her look unexpectedly beautiful. Thank you, Kaelen. You are remarkably resourceful. Persistent? He corrected, managing a tired grin. There's a difference. With Lyra slowly regaining her strength, they turned their attention to their broader predicament. They were lodged precariously on a large, pockmarked asteroid, one of thousands in a dense, swirling field. The Seraphim's external sensors were mostly offline, but the view through the reinforced viewport was daunting. Rocks the size of small moons drifted perilously close, their surfaces scared and ancient. Elegant decay, Lyra murmured, gazing out at a particularly fractured asteroid that was slowly crumbling under the nebula's faint gravitational tides. Even in such desolation, there is a certain grandeur to the universe's slow unwinding. Kaelen grunted. Looks like a cosmic junkyard to me. And we're the latest piece of trash. He checked the ship's status display again. Long-range comms are fried. Short range might work if there was anyone to talk to. Main engines are a disaster. The harmony drive, well, let's just say it's not feeling very harmonious right now. The Scourge? Lyra said, her voice regaining some of its melodic strength. Its nature, it is antithetical to the fundamental order of existence. What I felt from it wasn't just chaos, it was a perversion. A sentient hunger that seeks to unravel the very patterns of life. Patterns of life. Kaelen echoed, looking at her. You mean like the cipher of creation? He'd heard silent philosophers mention it, a theoretical underlying code or energy that connected all living things. He'd always dismissed it as mystical woo-woo. Lyra nodded slowly. The Sylvans believe the cipher is the silent song the universe sings to itself. It is the blueprint for all that is, and all that becomes. The Scourge, it seeks to silence that song, or worse, to sing its own twisted verse over it, corrupting it into something monstrous. Her eyes, now clearer and brighter under the Sunbloom light, held a deep, ancient sorrow. My people have always been sensitive to its echoes. My ability to perceive order in chaos, it is, perhaps, a way of hearing fragments of that song. Kaelen considered this. Her chaos taming wasn't just a party trick, it was a profound connection to something fundamental. So, the Scourge isn't just a biological weapon, it's an anti-life force. In essence, Lyra affirmed, and Xylos is a world where the cipher resonates strongly. It is a beacon of life, of harmonious complexity. That is why it would be a prime target. Her gaze became distant. I fear for my world, Kaelen. I fear greatly. We'll find a way to warn them, Kaelen said, his voice firm, trying to project a confidence he didn't entirely feel. But first, we need to get this ship spaceworthy. Or at least, able to send a coherent distress signal. Over the next few simulated days, the ship's chronometer was one of the few things still working reliably. They fell into a rhythm. Kaelen, driven by his persistence, worked tirelessly on the engines and comms array, cannibalizing parts from non-essential systems. Lyra, her strength returning under the Sunbloom lamp Kaelen meticulously maintained, assisted him. Her minor telekinesis proved invaluable for manipulating delicate components in cramped spaces his larger human hands couldn't reach. She'd guide a microfilament into place with a gesture, or hold a superheated conduit steady while he welded. They talked, sharing stories of their disparate worlds and lives. Kaelen spoke of the bustling, sometimes ruthless, commercial hubs of the Human Federation, of deals won and lost, of the constant drive for progress that sometimes felt more like a race towards an unknown cliff. Lyra described the ancient tree cities of Xylos, the deep sylvan reverence for the natural cycles of growth and decay, their art forms based on the subtle beauty of weathered stone and fading blossoms. She explained how a sylvan funeral was not a somber affair, but a celebration of a life's elegant completion as the body returned its energies to the planet. We see beauty in the entire arc of existence, she said one evening, as Kaelen was trying to coax a diagnostic program to run on the comms console. From the first unfurling of a new frond to the final, graceful surrender of an ancient mountain to wind and time. It is all part of the cipher's grand design. Kaelen, struggling with a particularly stubborn algorithm, paused. So, a pile of rust isn't just rust to you. Lyra tilted her head. It is a testament to the elements, to the passage of time. It tells a story of what it once was, and what it is becoming. There is a quiet dignity in that. He looked at the battered, jury-rigged console in front of him. So this thing isn't just a piece of junk, it's telling a story of dog-human persistence versus overwhelming odds. A soft, melodic chuckle escaped her. Precisely. And its current state of elegant disrepair is quite compelling. Their forced proximity bred a new level of intimacy. They shared dwindling ration packs, huddled together for warmth when the asteroid rotated away from the faint heat of the distant nebula, and the ship's internal temperature plummeted. Once, Kaelen gashed his hand badly on a sharp piece of metal. Without a word, Lyra took his injured hand. Her touch was cool, her taloned fingers surprisingly gentle. Closing her eyes, she focused, and he felt a faint, tingling warmth spread from her fingertips into his wound. The bleeding slowed, then stopped. The pain dulled. Telekinetic microsuturing, she murmured, her eyes still closed. A small manipulation of cellular cohesion. Kaelen stared, speechless. When she opened her eyes, there was a faint flush on her green skin. It is an exertion, but less invasive than your medical kits. Thank you. He managed, his voice a little hoarse. He didn't pull his hand away immediately. Her touch, the shared vulnerability of that moment, resonated deeper than he expected. He found himself noticing the intricate patterns of her feathers, the way the Sunbloom light caught the delicate tracery of veins beneath her photosynthetic skin, the intelligence and growing warmth in her dark eyes. One night, Lyra was particularly weak. The jury-rigged Sunbloom lamp had flickered and dimmed, its power cell failing. Kaelen worked frantically for hours in the near darkness, his frustration mounting until he finally managed to siphon power from the ship's already strained life support, a risky maneuver. When the golden pink light finally flared back to life, fuller and brighter than before, Lyra, who had been huddled under an emergency blanket, shivering, looked up at him. The relief and gratitude in her eyes were palpable. You didn't have to risk life support," she whispered. "You needed the light," Kaelen said gruffly, avoiding her gaze, though a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the ship's heating. "Can't have my chief chaos tamer and telekinetic assistant conking out on me, can I?" She reached out, her taloned hand hesitantly touching his arm. "Your persistence, Kaelen, it is more than just a trait. It is a light of its own." He looked at her then, truly looked, and in the soft glow of the Sunbloom lamp he had fought to restore for her, surrounded by the elegant decay of their broken ship and the vast, uncaring cosmos, Kaelen realized his feelings for the Avianoid scholar went far beyond professional camaraderie or shared survival. The unexpected union, forged in disaster, was blossoming into something far more profound. Their fragile truce with the universe was shattered when the Seraphim's proximity alarms, miraculously still functional, shrieked to life. Kaelen and Lyra scrambled to the viewport. Emerging from the swirling crimson dust of the nebula were three sleek, obsidian craft, unmistakably Scourge scout ships. They moved with a predatory grace, their forms subtly wrong, like twisted parodies of living creatures. "They found us," Lyra breathed, her voice tight with dread. "Or they were drawn to the Harmony Drive's residual signature." "Can we fight?" Kaelen asked, already strapping himself into the pilot's seat. The ship's weapon systems were minimal even when fully powered. Now, they were likely useless. "Our energy reserves are too low for sustained combat," Lyra reported from her console, her fingers flying across the controls. "And their biosignatures, they are broadcasting that same null frequency. It will interfere with any attempt to power up significant systems. So, we run." Kaelen's hands clenched on the yoke. "Assuming these engines I've been babying can even get us off this rock." "There is another option," Lyra said slowly, her gaze fixed on a complex schematic her console was displaying. It showed the asteroid field, but overlaid with intricate lines of energy, unseen by Kaelen's eyes. "This asteroid field, it is not entirely random. There are gravitational eddies, energy currents. I can see the patterns, the safe pathways through the chaos. But it will require precise navigation, and the engines must respond instantly. You can guide us through that mess." Kaelen looked out at the deadly ballad of tumbling rock and ice. "Blind. Not blind," Lyra corrected. "I will be your eyes. Trust me, Kaelen." He met her gaze. The fear was still there, but beneath it was a steely resolve he hadn't seen before. His dogged persistence met her chaos-taming insight. "Okay, Lyra, let's dance." The newly repaired engine sputtered, coughed, then roared to reluctant life. The Seraphim lurched upwards, dislodging itself from the asteroid's surface, just as the Scourge scouts opened fire. Greenish-black bolts of corrosive energy slammed into the rock, where they had been moments before. Evasive maneuvers. Kaelen grunted, throwing the ship into a sharp turn. "Port 10 degrees. Lyra called out, her voice calm and clear despite the chaos. "There's a gravitational slingshot around that large cluster. It will give us a momentary speed boost." Kaelen obeyed instantly, his faith in her senses absolute. The ship skimmed past a colossal asteroid, its hull vibrating under the strain. The Scourge scouts were hot on their tail, their movements unnervingly coordinated. "They are learning," Lyra observed, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "Adapting to our movements. Their hive mind, it processes information with terrifying speed." "Can you disrupt them?" Kaelen asked, weaving through a dense patch of smaller debris. "Your telekinesis at this range against shielded craft? Unlikely. But perhaps." Her gaze flickered. "The null frequency they emit, it has a rhythm, a pulse. If I can find a counter-resonance, I might be able to create a momentary dissonance in their guidance systems." "Do it." Lyra closed her eyes. The Sunbloom lamp cast a soft glow on her focused face. Kaelen saw the tiny golden sparks gather around her hands again, more intense this time. She extended her fingers towards the pursuing ships, though they were only visible on the tactical display. "No, Kaelen! Hard starboard!" Through that narrow gap, it looked impossibly tight, a tiny sliver of space between two tumbling behemoths of rock. But Kaelen didn't hesitate. He trusted her. As the Seraphim shot through the gap, one of the pursuing Scourge ships, which had been perfectly mirroring their movements, suddenly veered erratically, its trajectory disrupted. It clipped one of the massive asteroids, spinning wildly out of control before exploding in a silent flash of green and black. One down. Kaelen cheered, a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. Their coordination is faltering, Lyra said, a hint of triumph in her voice. I created a feedback loop in their targeting system. It will not last long, but it gives us a chance. The remaining two scouts, however, quickly compensated, spreading out to flank them. They were relentless. The chase continued for what felt like an eternity, a desperate flight through a cosmic labyrinth. Kaelen's piloting skills were pushed to their absolute limit, his persistence the only thing keeping them from being blasted into oblivion. Lyra, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of focused energy, calling out course corrections, predicting asteroid trajectories, and occasionally using her telekinesis to subtly nudge smaller pieces of debris into the path of their pursuers, or to reinforce a weakening shield emitter on their own ship for a precious few seconds. During a brief lull, as they navigated a relatively clear patch of space, Kaelen risked a glance at her. Her breathing was shallow, her plumage slightly disheveled from the G-forces and the exertion. The Sunbloom light seemed to be struggling to replenish her energy as fast as she was expending it. "Lyra, are you okay?" he asked, his voice rough. "I am functional," she replied, though he could hear the strain. "The Cipher. It whispers paths even through this desolation. But the Scourge is static, it makes it hard to hear." They were running out of asteroids to hide behind. The nebula's edge was visible now, a gateway to relatively open, if unknown space. But the Scourge scouts were closing in, cutting off their escape. "They're boxing us in," Kaelen said grimly. "We need something big, something they won't expect." Lyra looked at him, her dark eyes intense. "Kaelen, the Harmony drive. It failed during the jump, yes. But its core matrix, it's still partially charged. If we could channel that energy, not for a jump, but as a focused wave of disruptive harmony. Weaponize the peace engine." Kaelen raised an eyebrow. "Ironic. Can you do it?" The Scourge thrives on discord, on the null frequency. The drive was designed to generate the opposite, a field of coherent, constructive interference. If I can modulate its output, guided by my ability to perceive their chaotic signature, I might be able to overload their biosystems. She hesitated. "But it will take everything I have. And you will need to get us very close." Kaelen. Dangerously close. He looked at the approaching Scourge ships, then back at Lyra. Her face was pale under the Sunbloom light, but her eyes shone with a fierce determination that mirrored his own. This was it. Their unique abilities, combined in a novel way to overcome an overwhelming obstacle. The turning point hinted at during the station's fall was now their only desperate hope. "How close?" he asked. "Close enough to feel their blight," she said softly. Kaelen took a deep breath. "Then let's get intimate with the enemy." He turned the Seraphim directly towards the lead Scourge scout. "What is he doing?" One of the Scourge pilots, if they could be called that. Their voices were distorted. Chittering broadcasts. Kaelen's universal translator struggled with hissed across the comms, which had momentarily flared to life. "He's attacking?" The other responded, surprise evident even in its alien inflections. "Lyra now," Kaelen shouted, bracing for impact. Lyra placed her hands on her console, but her focus was inward, her eyes closed. The Sunbloom lamp above her pulsed, its light intensifying, then dimming as if she were drawing power directly from it, or perhaps her own photosynthetic cells were going into overdrive. The entire cockpit began to thrum with a new energy, a deep, resonant hum that Kaelen felt in his teeth. It wasn't the chaotic whine of the failing drive. This was something purer. The golden sparks around her hands grew into crackling streams of light, flowing from her into the console, into the heart of the damaged Harmony drive. "The patterns, I see them," she whispered. "The precise frequency of their corruption, I am inverting it, amplifying the cipher's counter-melody." The lead Scourge ship, now alarmingly close, fired. Corrosive bolts streaked towards the Seraphim. "Hold tight," Kaelen yelled, making a last-second adjustment, letting one bolt scorch their port stabilizer, but avoiding a direct hit to the cockpit. No. Release it? With a cry that was part exertion, part defiance, Lyra threw her hands forward. A wave of pure, white gold energy, shimmering with intricate, harmonious patterns, erupted from the Seraphim's forward array, an array never designed to emit such a thing. It wasn't an explosion or a beam of raw power. It was a song made visible. A wave of absolute, undeniable order. The wave washed over the lead Scourge scout. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the ship's sickly green glow flickered, sputtered. Its movements became erratic, spastic. The chittering on the comms turned into a screech of agony and confusion. The obsidian hull seemed to unravel not by corrosion, but as if its very molecular structure was losing coherence, its twisted design unable to exist in the face of such pure harmony. With a final silent implosion, it dissolved into a cloud of inert dust. The second Scourge scout, witnessing this, hesitated. Its aggressive posture faltered. Again, Kaelen urged, already lining up for another pass, though he knew Lyra couldn't possibly have much left. But Lyra slumped forward, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The golden light around her faded. I can't, the energy drain. The remaining Scourge scout, recovering its nerve, lunged. But Kaelen, seeing Lyra's state, knew they couldn't win a direct fight. His persistence kicked in. He threw the Seraphim into a desperate, evasive spin, diving back towards the densest part of the asteroid field they had just escaped. It's damaged, Lyra managed, pointing a trembling finger at the tactical display. Your last maneuver? It took out its primary weapon emitter when it scraped that asteroid. The Scourge ship was indeed trailing debris, its movements more sluggish. Kaelen grinned, a feral, desperate expression. Then let's lose it in the junkyard. He pushed the battered engines to their absolute limit, weaving through the cosmic debris with a skill born of desperation and Lyra's earlier guidance now seared into his memory. The damaged Scourge scout struggled to keep pace, its corrupted systems clearly still reeling from the echo of the harmony wave. Finally, Kaelen executed a daring maneuver, skimming the surface of a rapidly spinning moonlet, using its gravity to whip the Seraphim around and out of sight. They plunged into the dark canyons of a colossal, shattered asteroid, the Scourge scout's sensors, hopefully, unable to penetrate the dense rock and interference. Silence descended, broken only by their ragged breathing and the groaning protest of the Seraphim's stressed hull. Kaelen risked a look back. Nothing. They had lost it. For now. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He turned to Lyra. She was pale, her eyes closed, leaning heavily against her console. The Sunbloom lamp above her was dim again, flickering erratically. Lyra. He was by her side in an instant, gently touching her shoulder. She opened her eyes, a weak smile touching her lips. We did it. You did it, Kaelen said, his voice thick with emotion. That was incredible. We did it together, she corrected softly. Your persistence, my patterns, an unexpected harmony. He carefully unstrapped her, then lifted her gently from her chair. She was lighter than he expected, fragile in his arms. He carried her to the small alcove, where he'd rigged the Sunbloom lamp, carefully adjusting its failing emitter to cast as much of its precious light on her as possible. Rest, he said. You've earned it. She looked up at him, her dark eyes luminous even in her exhaustion. The Scourge, they will not stop. They know we are alive. And they know we carry a fragment of the cipher's song. Let them come, Kaelen said, a new resolve hardening his voice. He gently brushed a stray feather from her forehead. We'll be ready for them. As Lyra slowly drifted into an exhausted sleep under the life-giving light, Kaelen sank into the pilot's seat, his own body aching with fatigue. He looked out at the star-dusted void, no longer just a negotiator, no longer just a reluctant test pilot. He was a protector, a partner. The stakes had escalated beyond personal survival. They were now custodians of a fragile hope, a whispered counter-melody against a galactic scourge. And the connection he felt to the sleeping Avianoid scholar in the soft Sunbloom glow, it was more real, more powerful, than any trade deal he had ever brokered. It was a bond forged in fire and chaos, an unexpected union that now felt as essential as the air he breathed. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that he would fight for her, for their survival, for the new life they might build across the stars, no matter the cost. His dogged persistence had found a new, and far more profound, purpose. The days that followed were a blur of repairs, rationing, and growing closeness. Kaelen, With Lyra's recovering assistance, her telekinesis, now more precise, if still limited by her energy reserves, managed to get the long-range comms partially operational. They couldn't send a detailed message, but they managed to transmit a tightly compressed distress beacon, encoded with their last known coordinates, before the chaotic jump, and a warning. Mycelian Scourge active. Xylos primary target. Extreme danger. They could only hope it would be picked up. Lyra, spending hours under the revitalizing Sunbloom lamp Kaelen painstakingly maintained, slowly regained her strength. Her plumage regained its vibrant emerald and sapphire sheen, and the photosynthetic modeling on her skin deepened to a healthy, rich green. With her returning vitality came a sharpening of her senses, her chaos-taming ability, allowing her to parse the complex energy signatures of the asteroid field with increasing clarity. There is a structure, she announced one simulated morning, pointing to a holographic projection of the asteroid field. Deep within the densest cluster, an artificial energy signature, heavily shielded, but it pulses with a rhythm similar to the Scourge's null frequency, yet older, more fundamental. Kaelen studied the projection. A Scourge outpost, a nest, perhaps, Lyra mused, her head tilted, or something they are drawn to. Something they seek to control or corrupt. The energy signature has a disturbing resonance with the precursor legends, tales of ancient constructs capable of influencing vast networks. A chill went down Kaelen's spine, like a broadcast tower. Lyra nodded slowly. A mind control broadcast tower, Kaelen, or something very much like it. If the Scourge gains control of such a device, they could amplify their corrupting influence across entire sectors, overwhelm planetary defenses, subjugate populations. Her voice trailed off, the implications horrifying. They might be using it to coordinate their fleets, to find and destroy any beacons of hope, any resistance. And Xylos is the biggest beacon they know. Kaelen finished grimly. We have to assume our warning didn't get through, or won't get through in time. If that tower is key to their offensive, then we must disable it, Lyra stated, her gaze firm. Just the two of us, against whatever defenses they have. Lyra, that's suicide. Perhaps, she conceded. But to do nothing is to condemn Xylos and countless other worlds. You said it yourself, Kaelen. We'll be ready for them. Your persistence. My understanding of their chaos, we have fought them and survived. We have found a harmony they cannot comprehend. He looked at her, at the fierce conviction in her eyes, the unwavering belief in their shared strength. She was no longer just a scholar, an observer. She was a warrior, forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal. And he was no longer just fighting for survival. He was fighting for her, for the future she represented. All right? He said, a slow smile spreading across his face. Let's go kick over their fungal anthill. Their plan was audacious, bordering on insane. They would use the Seraphim, now barely spaceworthy, as a Trojan horse, navigating the densest parts of the asteroid field, using Lyra's guidance to approach the suspected tower undetected. Then, they would attempt to infiltrate it and find its control mechanism. The journey towards the coordinates Lyra had identified was fraught with peril. They navigated through asteroid canyons barely wider than their ship, dodged rogue ice comets, and slipped past Scourge patrols that were becoming increasingly frequent. Lyra was their guiding star, her chaos-taming senses acting as their early warning system, her telekinesis subtly altering their sensor shadow, making them appear as just another drifting piece of rock. During one particularly tense passage, Kaelen had to execute a series of incredibly precise burns, his hand steady on the controls, his focus absolute. Lyra sat beside him, her own concentration unwavering, calling out way adjustments, her voice a calm anchor in the storm of potential disaster. When they finally emerged into a relatively clear pocket of space, Kaelen let out a shaky breath. Nest flying, negotiator, Lyra said, a rare teasing note in her voice. You too, scholar. Couldn't have done it without my co-pilot who sees the matrix. He reached over and squeezed her hand. Her taloned fingers curled around his, her skin warm. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes of the trust and affection that had grown between them. The romantic tension that had been simmering beneath the surface had blossomed into a quiet, profound intimacy. There were no grand declarations, no dramatic embraces. Their connection was woven into the fabric of their shared existence in the way Kaelen instinctively adjusted the Sunbloom lamp for her, in the way Lyra would gently brush dust from his flight suit with a telekinetic puff of air, in the shared smiles that passed between them after a particularly difficult repair or a narrow escape, One evening, as they drifted silently through a field of glowing ice crystals, waiting for a Scourge patrol to pass, Lyra turned to him. The light from the crystals cast an ethereal glow on her features. "Kaelen," she began, her voice soft, "before all this, I studied your species from a distance. Your drive, your ambition had often seemed chaotic, even destructive, from a Sylvan perspective. We value balance, the slow unfolding. And now?" he asked, his voice equally quiet. "Now," she said, her gaze meeting his, "I see the fire within that drive. Your persistence, it is not just stubbornness. It is a refusal to let the darkness win. It is a deep, burning commitment to life. To what matters." She reached out, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Her touch was feather light, yet it sent a shiver down his spine. "When I was weak, fading, you fought for my light. You shared your strength when I had none. You would have done the same for me," Kaelen said, his voice a little rough. "Yes," she whispered. "I would." He leaned closer, his gaze dropping to her lips. They were shaped differently from a human's, of course, but in that moment they were the most alluring thing he had ever seen. "Lyra." She didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head, her large, dark eyes searching his. The Sylvan way of expressing deep connection, it is not always with words. And then she leaned in, and her lips met his. It was a kiss unlike any he had ever experienced. It was soft, tentative at first, then deepening with a surprising passion. It tasted faintly of the Sunbloom light, and something uniquely Lyra, something ancient and wild and wonderfully new. It was a kiss that sealed their unexpected union, a promise of love found across the stars, a defiant spark against the encroaching darkness. When they finally broke apart, breathless, the glow of the ice crystals seemed to envelop them in a private universe. "So much for detached observation, scholar," Kaelen murmured, his thumb gently stroking her cheek. Lyra's feathered crest ruffled in a way he now recognized as pure, unadulterated pleasure. "My hypothesis regarding human-Sylvan emotional compatibility," she said, a smile playing on her lips, "appears to be strongly supported by empirical evidence." Their shared laughter, soft and intimate, echoed through the small cockpit, a fragile sound of joy in a galaxy teetering on the brink of despair. They knew the path ahead was dangerous, perhaps fatal. But now they faced it together, their hearts and purposes intertwined. The mind control tower awaited, a monument to the Scourge's malevolence, and Kaelen and Lyra, armed with little more than their courage, their unique abilities, and a love that had defied all odds, were heading straight for it. The structure, when they finally reached it, was even more horrifying than they had imagined. It wasn't so much built as grown. A colossal, twisted spire of blackened, fungal-like material, pulsating with a sickening greenish-black light, it clawed its way out of the heart of a massive, hollowed-out asteroid. Tendrils of the same substance snaked across the asteroid's surface, like veins on a diseased heart, pulsing in time with the tower's baleful glow. This was undoubtedly the mind control broadcast tower, the nexus of the Mycelian Scourge's rapidly expanding influence. "Elegant decay this is not," Kaelen muttered, his hand instinctively going to the plasma pistol holstered at his side. "This is an abomination," Lyra whispered, her usual appreciation for natural processes replaced with revulsion. "It is actively leaching energy from the asteroid itself, from the very fabric of space around it, and the chaotic frequencies it emits, they are designed to shatter sanity, to impose the Scourge's will." They had managed to dock the Seraphim in a deep, shadowy fissure on the far side of the asteroid, shielded from the tower's direct line of sight. Now, clad in environmental suits more for protection against whatever toxins the Scourge emitted than for vacuum, they began their infiltration. Lyra's chaos taming was essential, allowing her to identify subtle weaknesses in the tower's outer defenses, almost invisible sensor blind spots, and pathways through the pulsating fungal growths that seemed less aggressively sentient. The interior of the tower was a nightmare landscape. Corridors were more like chitinous tunnels, slick with foul-smelling slime. The air, even filtered through their suits, felt heavy, oppressive, vibrating with the tower's insidious broadcast. They encountered Scourge drones, grotesque amalgamations of fungus and stolen technology, their movements jerky and unnatural. Kaelen's plasma pistol dispatched them efficiently, while Lyra used her telekinesis to trigger localized cave-ins, or to short-circuit patrolling sentinels, by subtly redirecting their own energy flows. "The control center," Lyra said, pointing down a particularly dark and throbbing tunnel. "It should be at the tower's core," where the energy converges most strongly. I can feel its dissonant heartbeat. As they moved deeper, the psychic pressure increased. Kaelen felt tendrils of alien thought trying to pry at his mind, whispers of despair and submission. He gritted his teeth, focusing on Lyra on their mission. His persistence a shield against the insidious influence. Lyra, too, was affected. Her feathered crest flattened against her skull, her movements tighter, but her resolve remained unbroken. She seemed to be actively filtering the chaotic noise, her mind a bulwark against the tower's mental assault. They reached a vast central chamber. In its center, suspended by thick, pulsating fungal cables, was a colossal, brain-like mass of scourge material. It throbbed with a sickening luminescence, emitting waves of visible distortion. This was the source of the mind control broadcast, the heart of the Scourge's local network. Around it, more drones patrolled, and larger, more formidable Scourge warriors hulking biomechanical monstrosities stood guard. This is it? Kaelen breathed. How do we shut it down? Lyra surveyed the chamber, her eyes narrowed in concentration, filtering the overwhelming psychic static. The brain, it draws power from those cables. But there's a primary nexus point, a regulator there. She pointed to a smaller, crystalline structure embedded at the base of the fungal brain, glowing with a more intense, unstable light. If we can overload that regulator, the feedback should cascade through the entire system, disrupt the broadcast. Sounds simple enough, Kaelen said grimly, checking his pistol's charge. Except for the welcoming committee. We will create a diversion, Lyra said, her gaze calculating. Your strength, me subtleties. I can disrupt their immediate coordination, create an opening. You must reach that regulator, Kaelen. Your persistence is the key to breaking through. And what about you? He asked, his voice tight with concern. I will be the eye of the storm. She said, a faint smile touching her lips. Taming the chaos, just enough for you to strike. With a shared nod, they launched their desperate attack. Kaelen opened fire, his plasma bolts searing through the Scourge drones, drawing their attention. Lyra, meanwhile, extended her hands, and the golden sparks of her telekinesis danced around her. But this time, she wasn't just moving small objects. She focused on the pulsating fungal network itself, on the chaotic energy flows within it. She wasn't trying to destroy it, but to redirect it, to turn its own power against itself. Patches of the fungal wall suddenly writhed, tendrils lashing out at nearby Scourge warriors, not at Kaelen. Drones short-circuited as their internal energy systems were subtly scrambled. The cohesive, hive-mind coordination of the Scourge forces faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. Now, Kaelen, go! Lyra cried, her face strained with the immense effort. The Sunbloom light of her being seemed to be pouring out of her, a visible aura of ordered energy pushing back against the tide of corruption. Kaelen didn't hesitate. He charged forward, dodging blasts of corrosive goo, his plasma pistol blazing. He fought with a ferocity born of desperation and love, his every move focused on reaching that crystalline regulator. A Scourge warrior, twice his size, blocked his path, its multi-faced eyes glowing with malevolence. Kaelen roared, ducking under a sweeping claw, and fired point blank into its exposed joint, sending it crashing to the ground. He could feel the tower's psychic assault intensifying, trying to crush his will. But the image of Lyra, her courage, her light, burned brighter in his mind. He pushed on, his dogged persistence an unbreakable shield. He was almost there. The regulator pulsed just meters away, but another, even larger Scourge guardian, bristling with bioweaponry, rose to intercept him. Kaelen knew he couldn't take this one down quickly enough. Suddenly, a section of the fungal ceiling above the guardian tore loose, not by chance, but guided by an unseen force. It crashed down, momentarily stunning the creature. A little help from above. Lyra's voice, strained but triumphant, echoed in his calm. She was weaving a web of controlled chaos, turning the Scourge's own environment against them. Kaelen seized the opening. He leaped onto the stunned guardian's back, scrambled up its chitinous hide, and then launched himself towards the regulator. He landed hard beside the crystalline structure. It hummed with immense, unstable power. Lyra, how do I overload it? He yelled over the din of battle and the psychic screaming in his head. You has resonance points. 3 of them. You must strike them in sequence. I will guide the energy surge. Her voice was weakening. The effort of holding back the tide of chaos of shielding him was taking its toll. He saw them 3